Welcome to the League of Women Voters of Curry County Candidates Forum. I'm Georgia Nowlin, and I'll be moderating today's forum. Before we begin, I ask that everyone please silence your cell phones. Thank you. I'd like to introduce our League President, Alice Prudent. Where are you, Alice? Back there. And she's done a great job filling in at the last minute for the Voter Service Chair. And I also like to say we have our League member volunteers out here as well. Deborah Worth, Linda Stagg-Brown, Ed Patterson, Vicki Bradley, Rich Prudent, and Carol Simas. Thank you all. So let me begin with the League mission statement. The League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization, encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League does not support or oppose candidates running for elected office. Any voting person can be a member of the League of Women Voters. We have both men and women members, as you can see, and we invite you to join. Membership forms are in the back of the room, back there, as well as a donation jar. I'll explain the ground rules for today's forum. We have candidates running for Brookings-Harbor School District, position number 3, Brookings-Harbor Port District, position number 3, Chetco Community Library District, positions number 3, 4, and 5. Only candidates with contested positions were invited to participate in today's forum. The candidates have drawn numbers to determine speaker order. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for their opening statements. Once that portion is completed, we will go to the question and answer part of the forum. Only questions submitted on the 3x5 cards you each received when you entered will be asked. There will be no oral questions from the audience. Each person gets 1 card, although I would say with our smaller audience, if you should have a second question, I believe you can go ahead and ask for a card and we will allow you to submit that as well. And if you did not receive a card, please hold your hand up now and one of our members will go ahead and hand you one. If your question is directed to a specific candidate or office, please state that on top of the card. When you have a question ready, raise your hand and a League member will collect it. Volunteers, please raise your hands so everyone knows who you are. Okay, they're in the back of the room there. Questions will be given to our sorters who will sort the cards according to office. Then the questions will be brought to me. We ask that you keep the questions in good taste so that important issues can be addressed. Please make an effort to write legibly. We'll allow 1.5 minutes for each question, for each answer. We hope to get through all the questions. I'm sure we will. Following the Q&A, each candidate is permitted 2 minutes to give a closing statement. You are welcome to stay and speak with the candidates after the forum. Our timer tonight is Linda Stagg-Brown, right up here. She will hold a yellow card up when 30 seconds of the allotted time remains and a red card when the time is up. Candidates, you can all see her? Okay. I'll make sure that we follow the time limits so that we can end the forum no later than 4 p.m. Audience members are not permitted to make statements. Also, we ask you to refrain from applause, cheering, hissing, or booing. At the end of the forum, we will have a round of applause for all the candidates. We ask that no unauthorized recording take place. And please, once again, turn off your cell phones. Right. Now, I'm going to introduce the candidates for the May 16th Special Districts election in alphabetical order for each office. For Brookings-Harbor School District Director, position number 3, Rochelle Jenkins and Trish Walker. Sabrina Houston could not attend. For Brookings-Harbor Port District Commissioner, position number 3, Larry Jonas, incumbent. Shane Lensgraf could not attend. For Chetco Community Library District Director, position number 3, Peggy Goergen, incumbent. Okay. And Robert Wilson could not attend. For Chetco Library Position Director, position number 4, Kathleen Dickson, incumbent. Ronn Johnson will not be here. For Chetco Community Library District Position Director, number 5, Judith Seyle, incumbent, and Tony Parrish. Susan Dodgen could not attend. So now is the time for the candidates' introductions. As noted, they've drawn numbers to determine who speaks first. So we're going to start with the Brookings-Harbor School District, and I am going to have Rochelle Jenkins speak first.
Oh.
Hello everyone, I'm Rochelle Jenkins and I'm running for the school board position 3. I am a mother of 2 children that are currently enrolled in the Brookings-Harbor School District. I have an adult child as well that is in the military. My husband and I came to the conclusion a few years ago that we needed to get involved. On March 10th, 2020, our daughter was actually sexually assaulted in the science class with the teacher present at Azalea Middle School. To make matters worse, when our daughter ran to the office, which we had always taught our children, that's the safe place. They will always protect you. For 2.5 hours, the then principal refused to call us. Instead, she badgered our daughter for 2.5 hours, attempting to get her to not report the crime. It's been a difficult role for our daughter to have to go through. Her hardest part that she's had to kind of come to grips with is the violation of the adults. And the response we got from the school was, don't tell anybody. Be quiet, shut up. And that needs to stop. As parents and as a community, we have a right to be involved, and we should be a team because our kids are the most important thing. And we all work together, and when we do so successfully, our children get the best outcome. To give an example of that is we're getting ready to get a brand new sports field. The track, the football field, because everybody got together and worked together. And after graduation, members of the community, our school district, and our kids are all going to get together and they're redoing that field. If we can redo that field, why can't we do the atmosphere in our schools? And I want to be involved in making sure that the parents have a voice and they trust the schools are going to tell us everything. We had a weapon removed from the high school. Actually, 2 children were threatened with it. And the school waited a month to notify the parents. That's unacceptable. And I want to be a part of that change. We have a great group of teachers that need support. They make probably about the least amount of money in the state, pretty darn close to it. But they come to school every day happy. You watch those teachers pull up, they're smiling, they're bouncing. Their passion is our kids. They need our support. And they're not getting it from the current administration. So I would appreciate your support and me to help give them what they need. Thank you.
Trish Walker, 15 minutes.
Hello, my name is Trish Walker and I'm running for Brookings-Harbor School Board, position 3. I have been a resident of the Brookings community for the past since 2007, sorry. I am a registered nurse and I am licensed in 3 states. I've worked in a variety of state settings, including trauma ICU, surgical ICU, pre-op and post-op nursing, transplant coordinator, nursing management, home health, and most recently, school nursing. I retired from the Brookings-Harbor School District 2 years ago, where I was a district nurse for 6 years. I volunteer at the schools, and I'm currently a puppy raiser for Canine Companions, who provide service dogs to people with disabilities at no cost. I am currently raising future service dog Elliot. I have 4 grandchildren, and my twin grandsons attend Kalmiopsis Elementary School. During my employment at the school district, I worked with administration on various projects, including the development of the emergency procedures manual in case we have a mass casualty event, the concussion management protocol, which protects students who sustain these types of injuries, and there are a lot of them, and most recently, the comprehensive communicable disease management plan. It's a lot. This plan had to be put into place prior to us opening the schools during the COVID pandemic. Our district was one of very few in the state that had in-person learning. It took a team effort to develop the ways to meet all the health and safety requirements of Oregon Department of Education and the Oregon Health Authority, which continually changed throughout the whole process. In the midst of all of the uncertainty, we remained resilient, which allowed us to provide a safe way to educate our students while making sure their emotional needs were met. I am running for this position in order to ensure that the health and safety of all students and staff is considered before any decisions are made. This is important because all students deserve to have a safe learning environment in order for them to succeed. I have no personal agenda or bias towards the school district. I am solely running in order to do the greatest good for our students, our staff, and our community. I know that as a member of the school board, my role is to set policy and oversee the superintendent while representing the students, the staff, and of course the community. A school board also contributes to the well-being of the students to improve student achievement and making sure that all decisions are made in the best interest of every single one. Most importantly, I think communication is key. You must hear what is being said and respond in a professional or respectful manner. I realize that some people will not always feel heard because they didn't get what they felt they deserved. But the key is to listen and to clarify so that communication doesn't break down. Thank you.
For Brookings-Harbor Port District, I have Larry Jonas. Larry, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Larry Jonas. I'm running for re-election for Port Commissioner, position number 3 in the Port of Brookings-Harbor. I'd kind of like to take this opportunity to thank the Women's League of Voters again for providing this forum so that the community can meet us and we can answer any of your questions. And although I don't fit into the library or school, I'd like to thank all of you that showed up today and gave of your time to come here and meet the community. Excuse me. I'd like to continue working for the Port of Brookings-Harbor as a commissioner with staff to assist the port in continuing to be responsible stewards of the beautiful port that we have, the beautiful environment that we are creating down there, and to continue being fiscally sound, creating a good place for recreational and commercial fishing and a place for tourism to thrive. My wife and I purchased a home here in 2012, moved here full-time in 2017, where I retired from the city of Scottsdale after 30 years of public service. There I had a well-rounded career. I started there in '79, worked in the Parks Department. From there, I moved up in 1982 to the Solid Waste Department, where I worked on the brush crew, container repair, heavy equipment operator, and eventually was promoted to a supervisor over solid waste, managing a multi-million-dollar budget and up to 45 employees at one time. In 1998, I was offered a position in code enforcement, which is under Community Development Services with the City of Scottsdale, where I was responsible for complaints issued to the city, to inspect, to identify city code violations, to issue correction notices, warnings, and citations Also involved me preparing cases for administrative, civil, and criminal charges that I would present in a court of law. I conducted inspections for liquor license and business license. I worked with
Sorry.
I worked with citizens. Okay, I worked with citizens, the police department, fire department, solid waste. I retired there, worked as a volunteer at the fire department, and worked at Roosevelt Lake Resort Marina, that is in Arizona, and I'm also on the board of directors for the Oregon South Coast Fishermen. I've been there since 2015. I've been on the Port Commission for the last 2 years.
That's weird.
Now we have Chetco Community Library District position number 3, Peggy Goergen. You have 3 minutes.
I give her that one because I don't think the one they're passing is working now.
Oh, it's not working.
I don't think it's as loud.
One of the first things I did when moving to Brookings in 1965 was to gain a library card. That number happened to be 364. I put a challenge on Facebook not too long ago to see if anyone else had an older one, but it appears I may be it. I'm a lifelong reading and library lover. When I was charged with opening a college outreach in Brookings, I was thrilled to lease the old library building after we moved here on North Alder. It was like coming home. One of the first things the college did was to form a partnership with our library to help support student needs. That partnership evolved into a 2-county partnership of all the local libraries to share and transport materials from library to library and over the internet. And I get a kick out of getting a book when it comes from the little library up at Dora or Agnes or somewhere like that. In 2017, after I was retired, I was asked to fill a vacant position on the library board. It seemed an easy thing to do to support the institution I love. I soon found out it would take all the skills I had to be useful in that seemingly simple job. During the term and a half I've served since then, the board has been challenged with one crisis after another. First, our librarian Susanna found out she was very ill and moved away for medical treatment. Our board and the excellent staff had to run the library without her through all of her months of built-up leave until her passing. Then came the lengthy search and hiring process to hire our current librarian, Julie Rutherford. COVID hit hard, and during the worst of it, we had to find ways to serve patrons without exposing them inside the building. Contracting for long overdue repairs, updating of the facility, dealing with homeless encampments on the ground, more closures for repairs, efforts to gain access to the funds the previous boards had saved for the library needs, and many more issues had challenged the board and the staff. Most people don't realize the legal and financial issues that are part of board members' responsibilities. Budget processes, handling of funds, audit requirements, partnerships with Goose and Curry Coastal Libraries, requirements of special districts, staffing issues, software and technology needs, and much more fill the board's deliberations each month. The current board has met those challenges and continues to try to meet the needs of all our patrons, regardless of race, color, gender identity, religious belief, political party, age, or any other form of discrimination or prejudice. I urge you to support our incumbents in returning to the library board.
Chetco Community Library District position number 4, Kathleen Dickson.
We're going to see if we can get through this without coughing. My apologies in advance. So I'm Kathleen Dickson, and I'm here to ask for your vote today. I was appointed to this seat in February to replace Ted Fitzgerald, who moved on up to the County Board of Commissioners as their county counsel. I've been in the area since 2002. I'm heavily invested in this community. I'm a business owner. I sit on the board of a number of nonprofits, including the Curry Student Success Fund, Wild Rivers Connect, and the administrative council at my church, Smith River United Methodist Church in Smith River. I also work part-time in tourism and inform a school. My life pretty much surrounds local food and local everything, for that matter. I've been a volunteer in a number of ways throughout the 20 years I've been here. Currently, I serve a meal at St. Tim's on Mondays with my Methodist Monday group. And I also am a volunteer with a national group called Third Act Faith. It's about the environment, climate change, etc. I am an avid reader. I grew up in libraries. I usually have 4 or 5 titles going at the same time. I read everything, not just fiction. I am heavily into mushrooms and organic gardening and spiritual books and the environment and birds. You name it, I probably read it. History, biographies. Picked up a fabulous book about libraries just yesterday, and I've just started it, sitting on the pile. Anyway, my reason for accepting the appointment to this seat and for running for re-election is that I believe in the freedom to read. I believe in our beautiful democracy that allows for public libraries like this to be available to everyone, no matter who you are, no matter what you're looking for. There's a book here, or there's a DVD here, or there's an audio here that could help you. So I stand on freedom of speech, the First Amendment, which allows people to write what they want and for people to read what those people write. I stand for the freedom to read. Individual choice is ultimate, and I'm not going to tell you what you can read, and I don't want you to tell me what I can read. And I stand for the freedom to learn. The library is a resource to explore and to learn, to use your imagination, to delve into different parts of the world that you might not know about, to try to understand people that you're not familiar with. So I want this library to be that for all of you, and that's why I'm here today, to make sure that that continues to be the library that we have in this town. Thank you.
Community Library District, position number 5. We'll start with Judy Seyle.
Good for you, Georgia. You said it correctly. That's a hard name. My name is Judith Seyle, and I want to say to you that the upcoming May 16 election is the most serious ever for this Chetco Library. I'm a candidate for re-election to the Board of Directors. I've served on the board since 2017 as vice chair and now as treasurer and budget officer. I've been a resident of Brookings for 17 years. During my working career, I maintained California credentials, licenses, and certificates. I hold a master's degree in education administration. My administrative experience has been in public health, a unified school district, and a county office of education, including operating regional programs in 3 adjoining counties. In Brookings, I volunteered at the Activity Center, the SMART program at K-School, WAFUN, the Brookings-Harbor Garden Club, weeding and trimming, not quite the same, Docet a Capella, Green Visitors, and the ticket booth at Holiday Lights at Azalea Park. I've also volunteered many hours with youth programs here at the library, preparing, assembling, and distributing activity bags for kids and some adults too, particularly during the 2 years of COVID. I've worked at relabeling books for the new shelving in youth department, putting new covers on books, not so fun, and working at various library events. Although elected, board members are volunteers and serve without compensation. I've developed MOUs, I've developed personnel policy for the district, board policy, bylaws for the board, contracts, and lots of other documents for district and board operations. I prepared annual budgets and monthly financial reports for the board. I want it to be known that I support all who actively advocate and educate in defense of intellectual freedom, a basic right in our democratic society. The right of all library users to read, seek information, and speak freely as guaranteed by the First Amendment. It's the duty of the district board to represent all 14,000
who live in the library district, not just special interest groups or individuals. As a board member, I will continue to defend intellectual freedom by supporting the policies this board has adopted that do not remove nor restrict access to library materials and services based on the content.
Dr. Parrish, you have 3 minutes.
The microphone, I've spoken enough times in this room to know that my voice kind of gets out there. My name is Tony Parrish. I've been involved with the library since 1990, at the old library, in fact. I did the construction cleanup for this library and then had the maintenance contract for the last 27 years. And then 2 years after that, the last 2 years, I should say, they made me an employee with benefits and everything. Then after it started to be modeled, they decided they wanted to cut my hours down to nothing, 2 hours, so I get no benefits, and so basically I was forced out. Now, I went to the library board meeting, the budget meeting the other day, and it was real nice. They accounted for all the money they spent. They just haven't told you all the stuff they wasted money on. Okay, I made a list, and what started it all off, we have a friend's closet in here, just around that corner there, that we store all the books for the book sale. Every 6 months, that gets emptied out and start over again. The board's reckless decision, just mindless decision, was to kick us out of that closet so that the server could go in there and put us in that trailer across the street, or that container. You can imagine carrying your 500 boxes of books, 90 pounds each, and carrying them across the street over here to here. I was told, oh, well, we thought about that when we got you a dolly pallet. Well, the dolly pallet is literally useless. It's an anchor we have now. The library owns it. It's probably will never see it again. You can't carry it down over curbs and up gutters and everything. It was worthless. I mean, we were raising almost $14,000 a year doing this book sale. We had perfected the book sale. We started from the old library, split the room with the VFW hall with the garden club. That's how long we've been doing this. We basically perfected it, and then it was just thrown away. So we have the poly dolly that's no good anymore. You know, we have a smoker's shelter that was bought. Imagine that. It's a little shelter like the bus station down there next to where Ray's was, where Parson was. You know, one of these plexiglass, steel tube little shelters. Now it's going to be put out here somewhere as a designated smoking area. That's probably still over in one of these containers. The lobby floor here, brand new floor. It didn't last 2 years before they tore it all out. Makes no sense. You didn't even get your value of your tax money that way. The clock. We have a beautiful clock in that big room. And for some reason, it had to be thrown out. After the motor finally died, we replaced the motor, and what did they do? They ripped it out. So they spent all that money. Terrible.
Can you hear me? Because I'm going to ask the questions. Do we have a microphone that I can use?
I can hear you, Georgia.
You see?
That's better.
Okay.
Yeah, that's better.
All right. I'm going to start off with a question for all candidates. And I'm going to start over at the very end there, Mr. Jonas, and move down the road. We'll make it that way. So this is for all candidates. And the question is, how does your outlook and approach differ from your opponents? Go ahead and hand the microphone down to you.
I probably don't need one either.
Well,
My opponent is not here, so I don't know where his stance are, so I really don't know how to address the issue. My goal is transparency. The previous port commission, and I'm talking probably 8 years ago, 8 to 10 years ago, kind of secretive, good old boys, and was unaccountable. Our goal since I've been there in the last probably 5-6 years has been to change that. total transparency.
Well, I'm not a real big fan of speaking about other people, so I'll stick it to myself. I'm real big about transparency, and that's where we have always identified as the problem with the school district. We have great parents, great students, we just need to learn to work together. And I have a background of doing the public information officer for Caltrans for 8 years. I had to go before cameras and parents and communities and explain how come. That's never a good thing. But you learn to be a liaison, how people got to where they trusted me and they could come to me and they would say, this is what my problem is. And I knew where to go and how to get the problems resolved. And I would like to take that experience and leave this school district when my children graduate better than we found it.
I agree. I don't like to talk about what she would stand for or what I would stand for. I think pretty much anybody who's running for a school board position stands for the children and our students and our staff and then the community as a whole. And making sure that every dollar we put into it, any issue that there could potentially be brought to the board after it goes through its chain of command, because there's many policies in place for that, so we have to remember that. That we would, all work together again, because what we want is the students to succeed, so at the end of the day.
I will start by saying the past year and a half at board meetings, our board has heard more than I can even ever imagine we would have heard about content of this collection, which is why my comments were about intellectual freedom and the freedom to read. I understand Tony has a different perspective. He is running against me. That's fine. But my comments continue to be about intellectual freedom, and every person who uses this amazing library has the right to decide what they want to read, what they want their children to read. We are not a daycare center. We are a library that is open to everyone. So the difference for me, since the other opponent is not here, is to continue to advocate that we have policies that we do not remove, we do not restrict access. That's where I'm at.
The question, make sure I have it right.
The question is, how does your outlook and approach differ from your opponents?
I guess it's just a younger view. I guess it's just a younger view. I'm sorry that the other three aren't here. I call them the MAGA slate. But they're not here. And so it's kind of hard to talk about how they see things. I personally leave it up to the librarian. Okay? If I'm ill and I need medicine, I go to a doctor, and a doctor picks out the right one. If my car breaks down, I have a mechanic who picks out the right part and fixes it. Same thing with a library, or I should say a caddy, give me the right club. Well, I rely on the librarian to choose the books. She's done the research, she's done reviews. I haven't, so I can't see one person coming in and saying, stop everything because I don't like it. That, to me, that's just not the way it should be done. But I am going to go to they're having a forum tomorrow night, I guess, the Republicans are. I got an invitation. It didn't have a name on who was sponsoring it, and I got the invitation a day after it was due back. So I'm going to go anyway, just be in the audience to find out what their position is on that, and I think you should too.
Well, like a couple of other people, I can't really say what my opponent's viewpoint is because he's not here, and I haven't spoken with him since he announced his candidacy. I met him years ago, and so I can only begin to guess because we've had so much public comment at our board meetings about youth materials in the library that are other people believe should not be there. I have 5 children, 14 grandchildren, and as of last week, 15 great-grandchildren with a new granddaughter. I'm very concerned about what they read, but I believe in their parents. Their parents need to go to the library with them and choose the materials that they choose for them to read. That's going to differ from parent to parent. Some parents came to our board meeting and spoke up and said that they used those controversial materials because they were homeschoolers and they believed in teaching their children sex ed. And so everybody has their own viewpoint, but I believe the parent has the right to make those choices.
So I'll agree with what my other incumbents have said. I don't know my opponent, never met the man. I have no idea where he stands. I can only base his stance on his sign, which has at the bottom of it, protect the children. Well, as far as I'm concerned, our parents in this community are the best protectors of their children. And I would like to leave it to the parents to choose what they want to choose for their children to read. It's not my place to tell them what to read. It's not anyone's place to tell them what they should read. It's up to the parents. And so I stand with freedom of speech and the freedom to read and the freedom to learn. I don't think that anyone in this community knows better than the parents of various children what they should and shouldn't be learning.
Thank you. This question, I think, touches on what Tony just had mentioned. The question is for library board candidates, and I'll start with you, Kathleen, and go down the line this way. And the question is, I understand that your opponents are having a forum tomorrow, Wednesday. Will you be attending, and why or why not?
Thank you. So I got a card in the mail. It was handwritten. There was no name. It was returned to a P.O. box, and I had no idea who it was from. It did, of course, say that there was a forum at the Grange. I didn't know what the format was going to be. I didn't know if this was actually a debate or a Q&A or what. And so I declined to attend. I, like Tony, would love for you all to attend because I would like to hear what the positions are that I should be that I should be compared to, I guess. So no, I'm not going tomorrow.
And I got the same invitation. And at the time, my husband had a medical appointment out of town, and that medical appointment just got changed this afternoon. And so even though I might be able to squeeze it in to go tomorrow night, I've decided not to, because public meeting laws are such that if the 3 of us were to go to an unadvertised forum like that, and we could be held responsible for being in the same place at the same time discussing library business. And I'm choosing not to go because I don't know what that forum is going to be like. The League of Women Voters was very clear about how this one was going to go, and I really appreciate that.
Well, you already heard me. So, let me get to something that I couldn't get to on my opening statement, if that's okay. No?
Well,
yes?
You can probably do it in closing statement, right?
Well, okay. Closing statement, I was going to tell you how I was almost arrested, convicted, and sentenced for murder.
Why don't we move on to a different, yes.
It's a fun story.
Okay. Judy, the question still is, and I'll read it to you again just as a refresher. I understand that your opponents are having a forum Wednesday. Will you be attending, and why or why not?
I'd be happy to show you the invitation that came in the mail. No name. Yes, it had my name. Yes, it had my address. To return only to a P.O. box. No, I'm not going. Number 1 is my personal safety. I have no idea who this person is. It does not give me any criteria for a forum or a debate. It gives no topic areas. I am not going to place myself in that kind of position. Secondly, Peggy mentioned this. It's very interesting to be 3 incumbent candidates for re-election. Because anytime library issues are discussed outside of this kind of forum, the public meeting laws come into play. That could very easily happen at tomorrow night, particularly because none of us know exactly what it is. In fact, even after today, you will not see the three of us meeting together or talking. If you want to get to know us and talk to us, we'd be happy for you to do that individually. Don't expect the three of us to be together and talk library business. It won't happen.
Okay, thank you. The next question is going to be for the candidates for school board. And we'll go ahead and start with you, Trish. And the question is, what is the primary challenge at the local schools?
That's a good question. I think the primary challenge at the local schools right now is social media. I think social media has become a huge issue. Huge issue. I personally don't do any social media, mostly because of my licensure. If I were to say something and a patient of mine or a student or somebody misconstrued it, I could lose my licensure. I would get fined from the board of nursing and lose my nursing license over things like that. And we have to respect privacy and confidentiality. It's just, federal laws, so we have to do it. But for the children in our school, I believe social media is contributing to a variety of problems, including cyberbullying, body image issues, anxiety, they have sleep deprivation, they're having academic problems, and they're being isolated. So I think social media has become a huge problem.
I really think one of the biggest issues, and there are many, and Trish did touch on a very important one. Another one is our children have been taught over the coronavirus how to be isolated. And when we brought them back, we didn't teach them how to be integrated. And so our children are really struggling internally because they've got used to being in a bubble. And it was all about them. And now we've thrown them in, junior high is an excellent example. We throw them into a junior high hallway. And as adults, that's the last place we want to be. And they don't know how to interact with one another. They don't know how to deal with frustrations in a positive way. They don't know how to deal with people that perhaps think or act differently than they do. And so they act out. And so right now I think as older adults, we haven't really experienced quite what our children are going through. And it's a whole unique experience. We're all going through it together. And you've seen how the adults are acting. These poor children, that is a really big problem, and it's hitting all of the avenues of school, academically, disciplinary, communication, everything, all down the road. It is really something that we have to strive to fix.
Thank you. Now this question is for Larry Jonas, and the question is, for a long stretch, we have not had big issues at the port. Please tell us why this board is doing so well. Thank you. Softball for you.
I was worried the way you phrased it. The current board replaced a troubled board. Two of the positions were actually appointed by the governor. And the people that were appointed were very respectable men. And I consider it a privilege to work with them. And there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of history. The people on the board are active in the community. They are active sport fishermen. They are active commercial fishermen. We have a very cohesive team that works together with good input from all of them for all aspects of what's going on at the port. And again, the biggest thing was the budget. It was just a mess. I mean, I've only been there 2 years, so I'm kind of seeing the tail end of what was there. The board before me has fixed it, but we are moving forward in a very positive direction. We're getting funding from state, county, we even got federal money. We've got millions of dollars in grants that we're going to use to improve the port even further.
Thank you. So this next question is going to be for both the school board and the library board. I'm going to start with you, Rochelle, and I'm going to have it move down the line here. So the question is, what is your philosophy for your board, regarding your board? Anyway, your philosophy, reviewing and deciding which books and media materials are appropriate for your clientele, i.e. students or library users.
With the school board, this is a really hot topic, in case you haven't noticed. The school has a different clientele than the library. And I'm a little old school, and I believe there's a time and place. The library is open to more of a general public. The school district has to be mindful of inclusiveness. They have to be mindful of social economical issues. So I like to have a thoughtful debate about what books should or should not be in the school. And it's okay to have a little controversy in a book. Some of my children's best lessons were learned from controversial books. The Diaries of the Lovely Bones is an excellent example of that. It is, if some of you are not aware of the book, I highly recommend it. It is about a child that was raped and murdered. It is a controversial subject to have a junior high class read, but the dialogue that came from that controversy was wonderful. It opened our kids not only to the bad side, but it also reminded them of the family aspect of that book and how important your family is in living day to day and embracing each day. Thank you.
That's a very interesting question. So to answer that, there are libraries at all the schools, and we do have librarians or library staff at all of the schools. They're not all licensed librarians. That being said, I honestly do not know what the school board, if the school board locally gets to decide what they get to have in that library, or if it's an Oregon Department of Education choice, that's what's in the library, based on laws and statutes that are in place. So truly it's hard for me to comment on that. School districts have to operate according to rules, laws, and statutes from Oregon, unless they are given some local control in it. Otherwise they can't, make some of the decisions. So
Understand that the job of a library board of directors is to set policy. We do not do day-to-day operational activities. The board's responsible to hire and supervise a library director. We have done that. We have also, in 2019, adopted a very comprehensive collection development policy. I put a few copies back on the table. If you want one yourself and there aren't any out there, be happy to give you one. That's what the board does, is adopt policy. We do not make individual selections. I already said that during the past year and a half, almost 2 years now, we have heard comments a lot about the collection. The board, again, supported the policy that we have in place. That's what the board does.
Well, like I said before, I leave it up to the professional librarian to choose the books. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. I don't know what else to say to that. I mean, I literally have no other philosophy than that.
And I agree
That's why we hired the librarian. That's why we set the policy. That's why the board doesn't get out here and do all the individual book choices. I've made it a personal project to start reading from the list of 100 books that are nationwide supposed to be banned from schools and libraries for fear that children may read them. I've found good in each one that I've been able to read so far. And one of them in particular at the very top of the list, I forget the beginning of the thing, but the back of the title is A Part-Time Indian, written by a gentleman who grew up on a Spokane Indian reservation and his trials and tribulations as a teenager. That again, it has to be relying on our librarian to read the reviews to find out what we should be getting, and then the parents to make their choices.
Can I just say ditto? Yeah, we hire a professional, and that's her job. And like Judy and Peggy have both said, and Tony as well, we rely on her to do her job, and we set policy. So that's where I stand on that one.
Thank you. Question for the port director, which is new. Anyway, what are the top 2 issues that you believe need to be addressed, and how might you address them?
The main one, again, is budget and financing. The port in the past, again, I've only been on the commission for 2 years, there was no line item accountability for any money spent or any money coming in. Public is welcome to our meetings and the budget meetings, and there's one coming up next month. If anybody's interested, I would encourage them to come. But we account for every penny that comes in. We account for every penny that goes out. We know where it came from. We know where it went to. We know who spent it, what they spent it on, and what was done with whatever product they bought or service. And that is just huge down there. The second one is the fish processing plant. I don't know if people, audience, public knows, but the fish processing plant down there has been working under a temporary license for, I believe, going on almost 6 years now. The federal government can pull that at any time, and our fish processing plant is gone. Our commercial fleet is gone. Lots of jobs are gone. We are fighting very hard to keep them there, spending federal dollars we have to put in our own water treatment plant so that business can stay there and support this community.
Thank you. So this question is again for both the school board and the library board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with you, Tony, Peggy, Kathleen, then over to Rochelle. Well, actually, Judy, and then Rochelle. Oh no, I'm sorry. Let me backtrack. Tony, Peggy, Kathleen, Rochelle, Trish, and then Judy.
There we go.
Okay, so this is, yeah, you got it? We're playing tricky. Yeah. So the question is, how do you plan on supporting students with intellectual and developmental disabilities? Use the microphone.
Well, that's a subject to be honest, I'm not familiar with. I really am not. I guess there should be programs. I mean, obviously there's a population that needs to be served, and so serve it. I don't understand what would be the stop why you wouldn't do it, or you wouldn't service those people. I believe in the golden rule, and then everybody's equal and treated the same, and so that's how I would think if there's a population that is in need of something, and let's get together with them and find out what it is, and then take care of it. That's the approach that it's the only approach I would take, or one approach.
I can't disagree with that. I will say that I believe that the library has gone a long ways down that road, by having children's activities that are open to all children. And an example was, gosh, what was the name of that? We did a fair for kids way back in the fall, and we expected, 100 maybe kids. And I think we had 400 people come through the doors for that event. It didn't matter what their disability might be, they were welcome. And we have a wide selection of materials that parents and family can choose from. So I hope that we're doing a good job, but we're willing to hear for more.
So since I've only been a board member since February, I'm at a disadvantage. I'm not sure what our library does or doesn't do, but I have full faith in our librarian and our children's librarian that programs that cater to all needs. And like Peggy, I would welcome any suggestions by the public concerning that particular question.
I have a child that is under the umbrella of special needs, not physically but emotionally, and our school district has a wonderful 504 program, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, where they comprehensively go line by line of everything that your child needs, has receiving, anything the school can do to help. One thing my daughter gets is she gets to leave class a couple minutes early. So because the overwhelmingness of going into those hallways is too much for her and can send into an anxiety attack. So every little detail, and we meet either quarterly. At first we met quarterly. Okay, how's this working for her? Her grades are going up. How is this working for you? And they would have a conversation. So our school is very engaged in making sure that each individual child gets that met, and we need to expand on it. We have special resource teachers that it is their passion to make sure each and every child gets the help that they need, no matter how little or large their need is, and I fully support that.
The school district does have 504 plans and IEPs, which are federally required by schools. So they do that with all the students. They have resource teachers at every school. So even if a student isn't doing well in reading, they bring them and give them additional reading time or additional mathematics time and integrate those kids. They have life skills classrooms. They integrate those children into the ones that can into the general population of students. Otherwise, some of them have to stay in the life skills classrooms with one-to-one instruction. So we are meeting those needs. There are a lot of diabetic students in the school, students who've had concussions, students who have heart issues, lots of different things. As a district nurse, I would write over 500 care plans for these students, saying, let's say they fell and broke their leg. They need to have books in the classroom and a set of books at home. Different things, different accommodations to make sure that all the needs of those students were met.
I would add that it's important for us to remember special needs doesn't apply just to K-12. It applies to individuals throughout their life. As a public library, it's important for us to have resource materials and be accommodating to anyone. The variety of the materials that are in this library, pretty amazing. The variety just in youth programs, from very easy to read from picture books on up to more difficult reading, wonderful. But that also applies to the adult section. So in the spectrum of a public library that serves over 14,000 people, and actually more than that, because we are in a consortium that not only includes all the libraries in Curry County, but those in Coos County as well, that catalog is available to all. Those books are transported here twice a week. So we do have access, and we do try to meet those needs.
Thank you. The next question is going to be for the library board, and I'm going to start with you, Peggy, and then Kathleen, Judy, and Tony. The question is, what are your plans for the future of the library?
Well, the first plan for the future of the library is to get the roof fixed. That's on the agenda now that the weather is breaking, and we've had to wait and wait, and it took a while for us to find a contractor that could work out exactly how to do this rather complicated roof, but we have it and it's getting done. In the future, I would like to see continued programming, and they're already working on it. You've probably already seen some of the activities that we've had for adults in the library. We've got a wonderful area that's called the maker space that people can come in and use items that maybe they don't have at home and learn to do something that maybe they haven't done before. More of that, more what we used to call community ed kind of workshops and activities. That's what I'd like to see.
Thank you.
So I'm really excited about some of the things that are showing up in the potential next year budget. I love the idea of the adult and children's programs. They're expanding those both those areas, and I would applaud that and do more of it. But my favorite bit is the potential for a reader board outside where we can start promoting all of the events that go on in this town, because as we all know, there is no one central place where that can happen. And I would love to see us as a community resource become that central place. So I'm really excited about the potential for that. And I would just say that all of the other projects that are being talked about all go toward making this more of a resource for all of us. And anything that does that, I'm all for.
Oh.
Start the ring again.
One of the most exciting things within the past year has been to expand our Spanish library materials and to actually have 2 individuals who are outstanding Spanish-speaking conduct story time and activities. And to see that grow has been amazing. We hope that will continue. You can tell we're really focused on the roof right now with good reason. But there are lots of other things too. If you've never had a chance to look at our strategic plan, it would be good to do that, because this is the year that we're re-looking and refocusing what things have been accomplished, what do we still want to do. Part of that is a strategic plan that is adopted by the board. It may sound like pie in the sky, but those are real things that Julie, our director, and our staff work on a daily basis. So the future looks good. I think there will be more continuing wonderful things, 30 seconds, more wonderful things that you'll see happening here at the library.
Well, in the future, I want to see the display case come back to the library. Why that was ever taken out in the first place, I have no idea. Everybody loved it, but it had to be thrown out. We had the pterodactyl in the children's section up on the ceiling, tossed. Well, not tossed, it's actually in my RV garage, I saved it. The sarcophagus, beautiful folk art, you know. Both these things were made by local volunteers who've been with the library forever. Just disregard this, discard it, just forget about it. I think it's just terrible. The artwork. I'd like to see our artwork back. I carried it all up in the attic, and that's where it's been. We've got pictures from Virginia Manley. We've got a big map of Oregon. It used to be out here in the lobby. There's nothing out in the lobby now. Those kind of things I want to see in the future. Now, you talk about this makerspace. Well, they've talked about it for a while. I actually tried to get a community makerspace started. Then COVID hit. If you'd like to know about a makerspace, look up Talent Makerspace. It's one that the city of Brookings should actually have. This little room, and they're doing little making stuff. That's not a makerspace. I've heard they say, "Oh, you get a 3D printer." Well, yeah, it'll end up in the attic because it didn't work after a while. They get really expensive. I've got a couple that don't work anymore, so you'll.
Thank you. This question's for you, Mr. Jonas, and there are two questions that are very similar, also future-looking. And one question is, what is your vision for the port going forward? And I'm going to ask the second question because I think it ties in similarly. What would you like to see the port to be in 10 years?
What I want to see and what's going to happen is probably two different things. A lot of it boils down to financing. Budget is an issue. We don't have a lot of income, but what I would like to see is a lot of the gravel gone, and we're working on that to have paved parking to improve the parking that's there. New business, we have a couple coming in I think will be really good for the port, and generally just to clean it up. Again, over the last 10, 15 years, it has just been, till the new commission came on, it's been let go. Again, I don't want to get into details, but there was a lot of money issues. There wasn't money being spent, and we need to secure sources of regular income so that we can improve the port. And again, I'd like to see nice new buildings, nice new paved parking lots, organized storage for the commercial fleet instead of everything everywhere amok, awry, whatever you want to call it. And some time and money spent on commercial fleet issues.
Thank you. The question now is for the school board, and I'll start with you, Trish, and then Rochelle. And the question is, what is your stance on teaching inclusivity for LGBTQ students?
What is my stance?
On teaching inclusiveness. Inclusivity.
My stance and my opinion on it, actually in a school, doesn't matter. So I'm not going to go and get into the political avenue of that. The schools have to do what the laws from Oregon Department of Education tell them they can do about inclusivity and all of it. It's just how they have to operate. And the rules are changing frequently. I mean, from just a couple of years ago, when I was still there, students were allowed to change their name whenever they wanted to. And now it's to the point that they can change their name and who they are without their parents even knowing, and their parents can't even get into their power school thing. It's not the school district's fault. It's the laws. It's the way our elected officials put those laws into place that are affecting how the school does business. Unless the school district had local control over it, they can't do anything about it except follow the law.
I like to just, the LGBTQ plus is just one of us. There are people. And yes, we have rules and regulations that we have to follow, but it goes by one rule. Treat people like you want to be treated. I don't want to be treated better than anybody else, and I don't want to be treated lesser than anybody else. And that's what I teach my children. If you don't have anything nice to say, say nothing. Say something of value. And that's kind of my policy. I don't want to push the LGBTQ kids out in the spotlight unless they want to be. So I'm going to answer in a more inclusive manner, that every child should be taught to be kind. Do not call somebody something that makes them uncomfortable. That's not okay. Don't do it. And I think that should be our golden rule, our golden policy. And that, I believe, is still well within the realm of, for now anyways, the rules of the school that the state and the Department of Education sets for us. But I would like to see more just common sense in the community at large of just be nice.
Okay, now question for the library board members, and I'll start with you, Judy, and go down the line towards Kathleen. and it's been touched on, so it'll probably be quick. What is your policy about age-appropriate reading materials at the library?
There are policies with regard to library cards, who's eligible for a library card, what requires parental consent, and the age of a child who can be alone in areas of the library. Those ages are what staff adheres to and tries to encourage. And ultimately, it is still the parent's responsibility to be with their child, to help select materials. And quite frankly, every time I'm back in the children's section, I see that. I see parents, I see grandparents, I see moms, I see dads with their children talking about items and helping select, helping out at the self-checkout. It's really cool to see young kids be able to do self-checkout by themselves. They probably learned how to do it before I did.
Okay.
Repeat the question, please.
The question is, what is your policy about age-appropriate reading materials at the library?
Well, number one is the parents. I mean, we are, it's almost an obsolete question because we're growing up in a Google age where any kid can just go to Google and type in, if they know how to spell porn, they can find porn, okay? So this issue of the age appropriate in the library is just a small part of it. There's a whole world out there that parents have no clue about. And I know because I was a kid, we would have gotten through, the parents wouldn't have known anything. You know, the kid, really, if you talk to these kids, they probably have pulled so many fast ones over their parents that they just want to have a clue. So, but I do believe that the parents have to be the one in charge, so they're not the library.
Okay, Peggy?
I'm really not sure what I can add to the previous two answers because I believe the same way. The parents are responsible for checking out materials that are appropriate. Every child learns to read at a different level. Some children learn to read before they ever get to school, and some children struggle. So one child that's 6 years old, the age-appropriate material for that child is going to be different if they're struggling with reading than a 6-year-old who maybe is reading at an 8th grade level. And then you have to be a little bit more careful. But again, that's when the parent comes into the picture and says, no, that book's not appropriate for you. Let's go over and find another one. And so that's my answer. It's pretty much the same.
And I'll just add that I understand that the librarian who's in charge of the collection has a number of criteria that she uses to choose which books go where, and that I trust her experience and her expertise. I also think that parents are the ultimate deciders for what their kids can and can't read, and if it's appropriate for them at a different age than it would be for another, then that's up to the parent.
Okay, thank you. This question is for the school board candidates, and I'll start with you, Rochelle. And the question is, what special talent, experience, or skill would you bring to the board?
Well, it depends on who you ask. If you ask my husband, it's my mouth. If you ask my children, it's my cooking. I am kind of a middle-of-the-road kind of person. I get along with everybody. I find value in everybody. And I've seen a lot of the controversies in the schools. And when it comes down to it, it's a lack of communication. The school board avoids the hard subjects. They avoid telling the negative because it is not fun. I worked as a public spokesperson for Caltrans for 8 years. I guarantee you 90% of the time I was out there, I was telling people something I didn't want to be saying because someone was going to get angry with me, somebody was going to be upset, and someone was going to just not be happy. But in the long run, you have to do it. And when you do that over and over again, it builds trust. right now there's rumors circling about possible staff on disciplinary actions. If we had interaction with our school district on a regular basis, that we trusted them to always tell us what was going on, the parents wouldn't be sitting back wondering, okay, did that really happen? So we need to stop and trust each other and communicate. Thank you.
Can you ask the question again, please?
Okay, the question is, what special talent, experience, or skill would you bring to the board?
Well, since I worked for the district for 6 years, I have a lot of knowledge about how a school district runs. And it runs like lots of governments run, because it is a government entity. As taxpayers, we fund the schools. So that being said, I have a working knowledge of what's happening at the schools. I feel that I'm a team player. I understand the limitations that are set forth. I know that a school board only sets policy and oversees the superintendent. That is their role. When you start trying to take the board beyond that, you have a non-functioning board. So you always have to look at the policy that's being set and watch that. The superintendent is doing their job. Each building operates on their own with their administration. The superintendent is in charge of making sure that those administrators are doing their job. Then if they're not, the superintendent has to tell the school board, and then it starts going the other direction. But I think that I would bring a lot of knowledge. Like I said, I'm a team player. I stand to my convictions. I ask difficult questions.
Thank you. Board candidates, and I will start with you, Tony. And the question is, technology is exploding. Should the library offer classes or lectures on AI, electric vehicles, computers, 3D printing, cell phone features, etc.?
Good question. Yes, to all of it. Like I told you before, the makerspace is a big deal. Repeat the question. What?
Should the library offer classes or lectures?
Yes. Okay. The trouble is finding the person who's going to give those classes. I mean, do we have teachers at the high school who want an extra gig to come over here and teach kids how to program an Arduino, set up a 3D printer? Yes, that would be great. I think that would be appropriate. I'm not sure what they have at the school, so I don't know what gap you'd be filling. Yeah, the STEM program, I don't know if you know, I take care of I do the Christmas trains. Well, a lot of that is STEM, believe it or not. Model railroading is STEM. It's gone to the digital age, and everything's different than it was when we grew up. So that's a teaching tool too. Get your kid into model railroading, you'll learn a lot. I guess it's about all I can think of on that subject.
Peggy, same question.
And I'm happy to say that we're already beginning to answer it. And we already had an AI training not too long ago, and the teacher over there did a fine job. Not too many people were able to show up, but we're hoping to do it again. The other thing that Eric and I talked about the other day was short workshops on a variety of computer topics. Not a lengthy class like you would find at the college that might take you there once a week, but something that lasts a couple of hours that can answer a few questions for you. That's the purpose of the library, is to give you answers for things that you need. And if you can't find it in a book, we can find it maybe in our staff or in a community member who's willing to teach for us. And we already are doing some exercise classes. So if you're looking for a short workshop on yoga or one of the related topics, give us a holler. Check our website.
So I think we might possibly explore the options of bringing in TED Talks or YouTube type talks where, lecture type things. We could expand our teacher pool, if you will, that way, if we were struggling to find someone in this community who could teach something. I also am a fan of teaching technology to people like me who don't understand it. So anything that can keep this community progressing in the way that the rest of the world is, I think is probably a good idea. We're a small town, and I don't say we need to lose that small town feel, but it also helps if we understand how the rest of the world works, then we can go ahead and participate when we want and back up when we don't. So yeah, anything like that that we can bring to our community is a plus, in my opinion.
We have a resource right in this room. Eric had 2 laptops set up, and we actually got to play with AI. Woo! It was a little bit scary. I went home and tried to do it. It's not the same as having Eric write at your right hand and being able to do it. But you know, the other thing, I can't remember his name, the young intern we had for a summer who actually brought my phone in because I was having trouble, and of course in 2 seconds he fixed it. But those kinds of resources we continue to offer on a walk-in basis, which seems to work okay. Sometimes you think, oh yes, it would be great to offer this class, and this class, and whether the response is significant or not remains to be seen. If 2 people come, is that worth staff time to do that? For those 2 people, yeah. But do you continue to schedule that? Is a real challenge for the library director to figure out. Fortunately, the board doesn't have to do that. But supporting any way to be able to increase anyone's knowledge about technology and new technology is way cool.
Okay, now this is the last question. It is for the library board again, candidates. I'll start with you, Peggy, Tony, Judy, and then we'll end with Kathleen. The library is a designated safe zone for tsunami disaster. What is planned to protect people? Could there be solar?
I heard that. They woke my head. They woke my head. You guys want cool? You guys, you want you stuck there?
Go get the police.
You want you stuck there?
Could there be? Thank you. Could there be solar panels on the roof or parking lot? So you want me to repeat it again? Yeah, it was rather. Yeah. The library is a designated safe zone for tsunami disaster. What is planned to protect people? Could there be solar panels on roof or parking lot?
Well, there could be, but we'd have to work it into the budget and find the resources to do that. But that's not something we've currently looked at because our current goal with the remodel was to get everything up to speed, up to code, and get the roof not leaking anymore. But that's a goal that we could certainly take a look at. And mainly for a safe zone is because we're above the projected height of a tsunami. The closer you get to Highway 101, the closer you are to being safe according to the historical record. And so allowing people to come here and be here when their own homes may be underwater or there may be other disasters that happen, we're always open to that. Not too long ago we were asked if we could provide a warming shelter night, and we were very willing to do that. They found another spot, but we voted to go ahead and do that if we needed to. So anything like that we're happy to do. No, we're like, okay, just that way.
Repeat that again, please.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be a designated
safe zone for tsunami disaster. What's planned to protect people? Could there be solar panels on the roof or parking lot?
I think for emergency use, you probably need a generator instead of solar panels, for one. Two, we don't have showers or got a little bit of a kitchen maybe. There's plenty of space to just lay out and sleep if you need to for short term, but I don't see how, the school would be in much better shape than us because they have locker rooms and showers and all that stuff. So, yeah, put us on the list, but there's other alternatives that would probably be a lot better than us.
I'm trying to think of how the 2 parts of that question go together. And kind of as Tony said, I'm having a little bit of a challenge thinking, how would the library work with 500 people in it at one time? Yes, it could provide immediate shelter, What would solar panels do in the midst of that? Actually, our director has done some preliminary look at solar panels, the expense and installation, and think of the weather in this area. How effective would that be? The time being, it's really a budget issue and an effectiveness issue that doesn't seem that the positives outweigh the challenges and the negatives. That doesn't mean you don't continue to look. We may, but for right now, that's not in the most immediate future.
So I would add that rather than treating the library like an emergency shelter in the event of a tsunami, there are other buildings that are more adequate for that use. Perhaps the library could be treated as a gathering center or an information center, kind of like when the Checo Bar fire was going on and the information was down at Freddy's, that kind of thing. I could see that working here. As far as solar panels, yeah, I'm having a hard time connecting that to the first part of the question. I'm a big fan of renewables, so if there's a way to put solar here on this property and decrease our utility bills, increase the renewable energy that this community creates, I'm all for it. But I think that's a future kind of idea. But I would never take it off the table because we need to move towards renewables.
Thank you. So that completes the questions. Now it's time for each candidate's 2-minute closing statement, and I'm reversing the order from your opening statements. So for the Brookings-Harbor School District, Trish Walker, you have 2 minutes for your closing remarks.
Thank you. I feel that I am the best candidate because I am open-minded, I am optimistic. I feel I communicate well, and I'm able to listen to all sides of a concern before ever forming a decision. I can stay calm in the midst of adversity. I'm an RN, so that happens a lot. I'm a team player, and I'm willing to accept the will of the majority, because the school board is a majority. I can stand up for my convictions, and I'm willing to ask the difficult questions. I'm willing to facilitate change when necessary. I know that we must nurture wellness in order to have success in school. I have a working knowledge of the demographics of our district and the struggles that many of our students and their families face, which include homelessness and food insecurities. I have a working knowledge of how the district operates, and I know their limitations due to all the laws, rules, and statutes that the elected officials in Salem have put into place. School districts must operate within the confines of law, and that is really difficult for a lot of people to understand at times. In order for our community to grow and flourish, it has to start with our schools and our students. I know that I can help with this by being elected as a member to the Brookings-Harbor School Board. I am hopeful that you'll place your trust in me on Election Day and vote for Trish Walker. Thank you.
I decided to run for this position out of passion for our kids and passion for our communities. I grew up in a small town of 990 people. My mom calls Brookings the big town. And so, we have issues with our schools, but there are issues that can be resolved. I want to be a voice of reason for our school board. We need to make sure that we maintain the security fencing of our schools. In the recent year, we have welcomed a healthcare facility inside the security fencing. And I was the only parent present at that board meeting when the presentation took place. And they made it quite clear that they were going to be treating people from the outside community. One of the services they provide is people in mental crisis. I have a concern about that. They've been real quiet. It's an excellent program and our community needs it. The location is inappropriate. There needs to be communication between the school district and the community and the parents. And that is my big passion. I have an 8-year experience working with government agencies and trying to explain what on earth they're doing to the general public, because that's not an easy task. You have to be able to explain state laws, regulations, and why in the world you're having to do that. I want to work for the community, with the community, and for our kids, because that's when it comes all down to it. This is about our children. And I have 2 children in this school district, and so I have that experience as a parent of what our needs are. I'm usually about the only parent at the school board meetings, and I'm there monthly. And it is important that we get involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, for the Brookings-Harbor Port District, Larry, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I'd just like to say, again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I think it's critical that someone be voted in, I'm hoping it's me, that has experience there, 2 years on the board. I know what we're doing, I know the direction we're going, I'm involved in what's going on, and I think at this point in the port status that if you bring someone from the outside, they're going to be hitting the ground not knowing anything that's going on. And I'm not trying to bash the gentleman. I don't even know him, never met him, but he's never been to a board meeting, and no one on the board knows him, so I don't know how much he would know about what's going on there. And I think we're going in a good direction. I don't think we need to change it. I don't think we need a bunch of new ideas at this point in time. So I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you. Now for the Chetco Community Library, position number 3, Peggy Goergen.
I've been sitting here scribbling a lot of notes for a closing statement, trying to remember what I haven't said yet. I'm very proud of the work that our board has done. We tend to work very much as a team, and we get along well and work our way through issues that when we need to. Excellent staff is just top-notch and friendly and helpful to everyone. It's an excellent example of some of the reconstruction that we've done, which some people say, why did you do that? When you walk into the library and you find the LED lights, and I can even read small print without my glasses in there, I think that's a good example of one of the things that we did. Finding a roofer was a real challenge, but we've done it, and it's about to happen. Another thing is the new display of the Fajita sword. If you haven't looked at it and looked at that wonderful model of the submarine to scale, it's just a good example of history of Brookings being in the library. Our board works well together. I would be sorry to see that not happen anymore. I not only ask you for your vote, but I ask you to seriously consider voting for all 3 of us as incumbents. Thank you.
Okay. And so, Chetco Community Library, position number 4, Kathleen Dickson.
So, having worked with this board for just the last 3 months, I love how well they work together. I love how I feel like I fit into that group, and I'm working well together with them also. I don't have the experience that my 2 cohorts have, but I do have a lot of passion. I love libraries. When I first moved here 20 years ago and lived in a tent in the campground across the border, first thing I did was came up here and found out about the non-resident library card, which I immediately bought. And we got our DVDs from here. That's how we watch TV. I got books from here all the time. I was in this place, I don't know, 3 or 4 days a week. I used the internet here. It was my home while I was getting used to this region. And I want that to be, I want this to be that kind of place for other people. I don't care who you are and where you're from. When you walk into this space, it needs to feel like a home where you can learn, where you can grow, where you can explore, where you feel safe, where it's magical. You can lose yourself in a story or discover a skill that you really wanted to have just by looking at the books and learning, where you can come to the adult programs, the children's programs, and just grow. The library is one of the most important features of our democracy.
Sorry.
Good job. And this one's bad too. Or maybe that was
No.
that one. You know, it's a place of magic, and I want it to stay that way, and I want to do my part to help it stay that way, and to help it grow, and to make it for you what it is for me. Just a magical, wonderful, imaginary place. Thanks.
For Jacob, position number 5, Tony.
Okay, I promised you a funny story. Now, Susanna, back in the early 90s, I got a call from her. I fell. I said, "Oh, do I need to call the you all right? Do I need to call an ambulance? Oh, I'm just bruised." Well, it turned out she had gotten a wreath they'd given to her from the girls at Florida Pacifica, beautiful wreath. She was so proud of it. She blames actually the NFL for this. The NFL game went long, 60 minutes was delayed. I think it was Clinton's interview or something like that was going on that night. So she thought she'd kill the time by just hanging the wreath. And she has a big A-frame ceiling, big wall space. And so she went it up a little bit higher, so she got a table, put a chair on it, a stool on top of the chair. And then she got it up there, and she got nothing. But then the stool went one way, the chair went another way, and Susanna fell like a Raggedy Ann doll. And just, you can imagine those funny videos you see all the time, people falling like that. Well, so she called me, and I was like, we watched all the Midsummer Murders and Perot and Law and Order and all those, and I said to her, "Great, if you had broken your neck, the cops would have come, seen your body, seen the glass smashed from the chairs and everything all over the place, and I would have been convicted." And so the next morning, none of the staff had known about it yet. I hadn't even seen her yet. So in the back room, all the girls in the back room, everybody just arrived. Susanna comes to the door, and this is how I know I would have been convicted. It was a chorus. "What did he do to you?"
Okay. Judy, your 2 minutes.
I don't have a funny story for you. I said at the beginning in my opening that the upcoming May 16 election is the most serious ever for this library. And here's the serious part. The voters of this district need to carefully consider if they want library board members who dictate their own choices and beliefs for all, or whether to have a library board that adheres to Oregon state laws by having policies in place for collection management, for circulation, and for patron confidentiality, without allowing personal beliefs to interfere with the obligation to meet public library standards. I will uphold those policies that this board has adopted. I'm so proud of Julie. Makes me teary. And all our staff. They're the ones who make this library a jewel of the Southern Oregon coast. The future of the Chetco Library will be determined by your vote. I hope you make it a vote to continue freedom to read for all. We ask for your vote for Kathleen, for Peggy, and for Judith. Thank you for coming today.
So that completes today's candidates forum. There's time to talk with the candidates if you wish. Thank you for coming to the forum, and I also want to thank the Chetco Community Public Library for the use of the room and all the support here. And let's give a round of applause to the candidates here. Thank you.